This is passion fruit. Passion fruit grows on vines. It's often cultivated on trellises. It's not recommended for pregnant women because it can induce contractions. It produces very beautiful flowers. Some of them are white, some are pink, some are purple. And they're pollinated by various insects like butterflies and bees, but also certain types of hummingbirds like the swordbill is an important pollinator for these plants. These are seahorses. They're actually endangered due to overfishing and habitat loss. The overfishing comes from the use of these animals in traditional Chinese medicine. So it's thought that over 20 million seahorses are extracted from the ocean every year. They tend to stay with the same mate throughout their lives, and it's the male that actually takes care of the eggs. So the female produces the eggs, but then she deposits them in a special sac called a brood sac in the male, and he takes care of the eggs until they finally hatch. This is a related species. It's called the sea dragon, and some of them are very elaborate. Like this one here has all these leafy-like structures sticking off of it, which helps it blend into the surrounding seaweed and so forth. These are native to South Australia. These are Nudibranchs, which are very beautiful sea organisms. They're mollusks. They don't have any shell, but they're still mollusks. This one is called the Spanish shawl, which is a great name. You can see all these little, they're called setae, sticking off the top. These have stinging cells in them. Native to the west coast of North America. These are sea clowns, also beautiful organism, found on the Pacific side of North America, all the way from Alaska down to Mexico. They're also found in Japan and South Korea. Okay, these are toucans, and the reason they're called that is because of the sound that they make, the call that they make. Even though it doesn't look like it, they're closely related to woodpeckers. There are a number of subtle similarities. For example, both birds have two toes sticking forward and two toes sticking backward. This just shows the range of toucans in the red here, all the way from southern Mexico all the way down to northern South America. These are dragonflies. Dragonflies, there have been fossils that have been unearthed that are dragonflies that lived many, many millions of years ago, and some of these are over 30 inches in length. So they used to grow a lot bigger than they do now. Some of the species of dragonflies have dark patches on them, which are thought to be involved in attracting mates. This one here has a dark blue patch on its wings, and what scientists have noticed that this patch seems to be getting lighter and lighter as time goes on, and they think it might be due to global warming. Having a dark patch causes the insect to accumulate a lot of heat, and so in order to prevent that from happening during global warming, this patch has become lighter over the years. These are frogs. Unfortunately, frogs are being attacked by a type of fungus that grows on their skin. It disrupts the ability of the frog to regulate salt concentrations coming into its body, and this ultimately leads to a salt imbalance, which ultimately causes heart failure. Over 90 species of amphibians have been driven to extinction by this fungus. These are poison dart frogs. This one here is the golden poison dart frog. It has enough venom in its skin to kill 10 full-size adults. Okay, this is ginger. We normally don't look at the whole plant. We harvest just the root, and that's what's used to for seasoning. It's found in various types of candy, ginger tea, ginger snaps. These are squid. They can grow anywhere from 1 inch, being 1 inch long, to 65 feet long. They have special cells in their skin that are called chromatophores, and they can allow the organism to change color and maybe blend in with its environment better. It's got 10 legs. 2 of them are for feeding, and they have suckers on them. They have 3 hearts. They have the largest eye of any animal on Earth compared to their size. So they have very good vision. These are ice fish. They're the only known vertebrate that lacks hemoglobin. You know, the hemoglobin is the protein that allows us to transport oxygen within our blood. So how do they live without hemoglobin? They have large volumes of blood, large blood vessels. They have a very large heart, so they can very efficiently move the blood that they do have, even though it doesn't have hemoglobin, through their body. So every few seconds the blood circulates. They don't have any scales, which helps them to take up oxygen directly from the seawater. And they live at very low temperatures, as you might guess, ice fish. And you can dissolve more oxygen in cold fluids than you can in warm fluids. And finally, they have a very low metabolic rate, so they don't really need a lot of energy. These are crabs. There are over 4,000 species. They have 10 legs. The legs are covered with little hairs called setae, which helps them sample the seawater for chemicals, various chemicals. These are horseshoe crabs, which really aren't crabs. They're more closely related to arachnids, which are like spiders. They have 9 eyes, very good vision. They're harvested by humans for their blood. Their blood contains amoebocytes, and these amoebocytes are very useful for assaying for contamination, bacterial contamination. So medical supply companies use the amoebocytes to test to make sure that what they're selling isn't contaminated by bacteria. So what they do is harvest these horseshoe crabs, they bleed them, and then they return them to the ocean. These are duck-billed platypuses, and they're found in eastern Australia, this red area here. They're one of the few egg-laying mammals that exist on Earth. The males have very sharp claws which have venom in them, and if you get scratched by one of these, you're going to be laid up for several weeks. It's a very painful process, very toxic. This is the Tasmanian Devil. Tasmanian devils are only found in a very small part of the island of Tasmania, just off the southern coast of Australia. They've been plagued recently by facial tumors, and they can transmit these tumors from one animal to the next by biting. So one of their characteristic behaviors is to sort of growl and bite each other. That's kind of the way they say hello. But that spreads the tumor from one animal to the next, and it's caused a real problem in the populations. These are puffins. Puffins normally lead a solitary life. They spend most of the year out at sea, but they come in to roost on land once a year, and usually on some of these offshore islands off the coast of Canada, Russia, and Europe. And there they find a mate, but then for the rest of the year they're out at sea. So they lead a very solitary existence. They're actually the official bird of Newfoundland and Labrador, 2 provinces in Canada. This is the brown pelican. It can spot fish in the water below from 65 feet up, and then when they see the fish, they plunge head first into the water and scoop the fish up. Their bills can hold 3 times more than their stomachs. They can actually drink seawater, which is something we couldn't get away with. They have special glands that remove the salt and then secrete the salt out of little holes in their bill. These are clownfish like Nemo. They have been adapted to live amongst sea anemone. And these sea anemone have stinging cells. So the fish is immune to those stinging cells, but other predatory fish are not. So this is a way they seek protection from their predators. These are fireflies, which are not actually flies, but instead beetles. There are over 150 different species. And they produce chemicals that generate light. It's the only 100% efficient way of making light. There are females that actually flash in a certain pattern that attracts males of another species. And then when the males come, they eat them. So the flashing is really designed to attract a mate, and these females are using it as a trick to bring in some food. Some fireflies can actually synchronize their flashing so that they will all the fireflies in a given population will flash at the same time, synchronously. These are scorpions. Over 2,000 species exist. Only 25 of them have venom. They're found in all continents but Antarctica. They're mostly nocturnal. They secrete uric acid, which helps them to get rid of nitrogenous waste without losing too much water. So they're very well adapted to living in desert conditions. And see, the last one here is the cuckoo bird. Cuckoo birds are brood parasites, which means they lay their eggs in other birds' nests and then let those birds raise their young. So some of these birds can actually make hawk-like noises. That scares the mother bird away. And then while the mother bird is temporarily out of the nest, the cuckoo bird comes along, lays its own eggs in that bird's nest. And then in the process, sometimes it will actually kick out the mother bird's own eggs. And then the mother bird eventually returns and raises the cuckoo bird's young, sits on the eggs, and when the birds hatch, they feed the birds. And that's it. That's the end of the sketchbook. Thanks for tuning in.